You wake up. The silence tells you something is wrong before your eyes even open. No traffic, no voices, no hum of electricity, just wind moving through an empty street outside your window. You sit up. Your heart is already beating fast. Where is everyone? You walk to the window and look out. The street is empty, not empty like early morning, empty like abandoned. A car door hangs open 3 houses down, exactly as someone left it. Leaves have gathered against the curb, undisturbed. How long has it been like this? You check your phone. No signal, no bars, no internet, just a dead screen reflecting your own face back at you, pale and uncertain. You step outside. The air feels different somehow, thinner, quieter, as if the whole world has been holding its breath. You call out. Once, twice. Your voice bounces off the buildings and comes back to you, unanswered. This is the moment it sinks in. You are alone. Not lonely. Alone. There is a difference, and you are about to learn it in full. You walk through the neighborhood first because it's familiar, because familiar feels safer than facing the truth. Houses stand exactly as their owners left them. A child's bicycle lies on its side in a driveway. A coffee cup sits on a porch railing, evaporated dry. Whatever happened, it happened fast. Or it happened slow enough that people simply faded, one by one, until the fading itself became invisible. You think about the last conversation you remember having. You can't quite place when it was. Days blur strangely when there's no one to mark them with you. Researchers studying isolation have long understood why. Psychologist Walter Pinto and his colleagues studying solo sailors and polar researchers found that without social contact to anchor it, a person's internal sense of time begins to drift, sometimes by hours, sometimes by entire days. You are starting to feel that drift now. Was it 3 days since you woke up like this? 5? You genuinely don't know. You decide to look for others. It seems like the only reasonable next step. You travel from house to house, then street to street, then town to town. Each place tells the same story. Empty homes, untouched belongings, no bodies, which is its own kind of unsettling. Not a tragedy you can point to, just absence. You start talking to yourself, out loud, just to hear a voice. Your own voice sounds strange in the silence, thinner than you remember it. Is this what loneliness actually does to a person? You always thought you understood. Solitude. You'd spent weekends alone before, even enjoyed it. But this is different. This isn't solitude with an exit. This is solitude that might be permanent. Days pass. You stop counting precisely, though you try to keep some kind of tally, scratching marks into a doorframe in the house you've claimed as your own. The mind needs ritual, you've discovered. Routine becomes the only structure left in a world that no longer offers any of its own. You find a working radio, static mostly. But once, just once, you think you hear something. A fragment of a voice, garbled, gone before you can be sure it was real. You spend the next 2 days near that radio, barely sleeping, waiting for it to happen again. It doesn't. Was it ever real at all, or did your mind simply manufacture a voice out of desperate need? Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying the effects of extreme loneliness on the human brain, and his research showed something remarkable. Prolonged isolation doesn't just make people sad. It begins to alter perception itself, making the brain hypersensitive to any hint of social contact, sometimes inventing patterns of connection where none exist. Your brain, starved of other minds, is doing exactly what his research predicted. You begin talking to objects. A mannequin in a department store window becomes briefly a kind of companion. You feel foolish admitting this to yourself, even though there is no one left to judge you for it. But you keep doing it anyway because the alternative is silence. And silence has started to feel like something with weight, something that presses against your chest at night. You think about food, shelter, water. These problems are solvable. Grocery stores still hold their shelves untouched. You learn to filter water, to ration what you find, to keep a fire going through the colder nights. Survival, it turns out, is the easy part. The body adapts. The body knows what to do. It's the mind that struggles. You start to notice something happening to your thoughts. They loop. They circle back on themselves with no one to interrupt them, no one to offer a different perspective, no one to simply say something you hadn't already considered yourself. Without other minds to bounce against, your own mind becomes an echo chamber, repeating, amplifying, distorting. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, famous for his research into human social bonds, once argued that the human brain itself evolved specifically to manage complex relationships, networks of people, shifting alliances, constant negotiation. Take that away entirely, he suggested, and you are left with cognitive machinery built for a purpose it no longer has. You feel that now, the strange ache of a mind built for company, running on empty. You find a journal in an abandoned house and begin to write in it, not because you think anyone will ever read it, just because writing feels like talking, and talking feels like proof that you still exist, that you're still a person and not simply a body, moving through empty rooms. The act of writing becomes the closest thing you have to companionship. One night the stars feel different, brighter somehow, without the glow of cities to compete with them. You lie on your back in the middle of what used to be a busy intersection and watch them for hours. It is the first time in weeks you feel something close to peace. Maybe this is what's left when everything else is gone. Not despair exactly, something quieter than that, a kind of clarity. You start to wonder what you would tell someone if anyone were ever to find you, or if you were ever to find anyone else. What would matter enough to say? You realize most of what used to occupy your mind, deadlines, arguments, small frustrations, has simply evaporated, made irrelevant by a world with no one left to perform it for. What remains feels strangely essential. Gratitude for warmth, the specific colour of a sunset, the sound of your own footsteps, which you've come to find almost comforting, proof of motion, proof of life. You keep walking, day after day, searching, half out of hope and half out of habit. You don't know what you're looking for exactly. Maybe just evidence. Evidence that you weren't simply left behind, that this wasn't something you alone deserved or caused. Evidence that somewhere, someone else woke up confused in an empty room too. And then, one morning, impossibly, you hear it. Not static this time, a voice, clear, human, coming from somewhere east, carried faintly on the wind. You run. You don't know what you'll find. You don't know if it's real or if your starved mind has finally done exactly what the research predicted, manufactured a companion out of nothing at all. But you run anyway because the alternative, stopping, accepting the silence as permanent, is no longer something you're willing to do. Whatever waits at the end of that voice, you've already learned the truth that mattered most. It was never really about being the last person on Earth. It was about discovering, in the absence of every other person, exactly how much of yourself depends on someone else simply being there. Not for survival, for meaning, for the simple, overlooked miracle of being heard. You wake up. The silence told you something was wrong before your eyes even opened. But now you understand. The silence was never the real problem. The real discovery was everything you learned about yourself while waiting for it to break.